We are finally home. Kathleen and Megan are sleeping on the couch right now in the chair. Jake and I just got back from getting our hair cut. We are very tired because, in essence, we've been up since 4:30 Paris time, so it's like 10:30 U.S. time. Of course, we napped on the plane a little bit, but still going to be a long day, and we're trying to do our best to stay up as long as possible today or tonight to kind of help reset our clocks. So let me step back to yesterday. We had another full day in Paris. It was pretty amazing. We went and saw Versailles, which just it blows you away. It's another one of those places that you just need more time in. We were there for about 4 hours. We saw some just incredible artwork, and just the grandiosity of it all is just amazing. One of the funny things we thought was, everybody kind of agreed, no wonder they were beheaded, right? I mean, gosh, if you saw what they were living like, you can see it on pictures, you can see it on YouTube, but until you see it in person, I don't think you really understand it fully. Things that were covered in gold, and the different rooms they had, the ante rooms they had, the artwork that they had, just tremendous stuff. So anyway, that was just a great time. If you think about the places we need to revisit again after going there once, we need to go back to Bath. Excuse me, not to Bath, but to go back to Versailles, to Windsor Castle, and we definitely need to go back to the Louvre as well. We went to the Louvre after we did Versailles, and that was incredible as well. We saw the Mona Lisa. It's amazing that there are so many people in front of you that when you try to take a picture, you are basically taking a picture of the Mona Lisa, and on the bottom half of the picture, you're getting everybody else trying to take a picture at the same time in the reflection. You can't get close. It's amazing, and it's so tiny. People say how small it is. It really is small. So but it was just amazing seeing some of the artwork that they had. And Jake was amazed at how many people are just naked in sculptures and in pictures. It is kind of crazy. But we did that, and Jake did a great job being 10 years old the entire trip. He had a mini meltdown when we got off the train or the metro, whatever the heck it's called, the underground thing, going from Versailles to the Louvre, because we had about almost a mile walk, maybe 6/10 of a mile walk from the train station, metro station, to the museum. But it was good, and we actually caught an Uber back to the hotel yesterday because we were just all too hot and too tired to do anything else. After that, we came back and we showered, and we went to a dinner last night. Nice little cafe. Had a really good meal. What we found out was, we're looking back at it. The food in Paris just blows away London. It's ridiculous. Everybody says that, but it's the truth. We also found out that the margarita pizzas in London in Paris are much better than the U.S. I'm kind of sad to think I have to eat U.S. pizza now, right? But we'll see. Maybe it's just because I was in Paris, it tasted better. So anyway, so that's that. We also, being in Paris, what we found out was interesting was the amount of smoking is just like in London. It's crazy. There's no air conditioning in Paris, which, like I mentioned before, it just blows your mind. Thankfully, we had a super awesome hotel. It was just tremendous. It was, I think it said 4 stars, but I don't really think it was anything less than 5 stars. It was just really, really nice, and the service was tremendous. We met a great guy, Arthur, I guess you would call him, from Alsace-Lorraine, who was there most nights and most days. So he was fun. We actually went down to the hotel bar, kind of lounge area, to watch part of the Women's World Cup, which was U.S. versus France last night. And that was fun. And crazy thing is, we actually met a teacher for Council Rock School District there who, believe it or not, also played in the band and is involved with the Council Rock band and plays the Penn Tap Room on Sunday nights. So just tremendously small world, right? And we met that guy, and oddly enough, because Christopher was down there, Christopher knows somebody he knows who was a student at CB South who plays drums. So just crazy stuff. So anyway, so that was a lot of fun, watching the World Cup, and realized that Americans, their passion for U.S. football is basically it kind of is dwarfed by the Europeans' love of soccer. You kind of know that, you hear that, but when the woman who behind us was speaking in French and cheering in French throughout most of the last half of the game, screamed "Jesus Christ" in plain English, just pure English, after watching the entire game, talking in French to her, I guess her husband, who was sitting next to her. And then there was a guy who was pacing, who was, I believe, speaking German. I'm not sure. It may have been Dutch or something like that, who was rooting very hard against France with his wife. He was pacing at the end of the game when it was 2-1, and it kind of reminded me of something an Eagles fan would do, or I would do, watching the Eagles at the fourth quarter of a game and just hoping that they were going to win, right? But this guy was crazy. It was like, I guess he was rooting against his Dallas Cowboys, right? So if he was from Germany, maybe he hates France, so he's, going back and forth. So anyway, so that's that. Again, great trip. And I think a couple things we, as a family, we talked about last night was, what do we either find different or like or dislike about Paris and London? I think, number one is, the smoking, right? Like, they smoke so much over there. It's terrible. And when they talk about Paris and they say, you always think about a picture of Paris, it's corner cafes, right? Or corner bistros or what have you. Yes, there's corner cafes all over the place. Last night for dinner, when we walked to go find a place to eat, because there's so many places to eat, it's crazy. We just went to one intersection, and 3 of the 4 corners had a cafe, and the other one had a boulangerie. So we just said, hey, let's just look at all 3, and we decided on one, and we went to the one and had dinner at the one. Outside, everybody sits next to one another facing the street, so it's kind of interesting from that perspective. Personal space isn't much there in France. Everybody's kind of close. Somewhat similar to London, but really in France, I felt like people were really close to one another. The traffic in France was tough, right? But I don't think it was anything more than like Center City, Philadelphia. The traffic in London was unbearable. Just to kind of recap, if you haven't seen the other videos, we faced standstill traffic on a bus tour. There was a Save the Earth rally. There was we were actually stuck in an Uber for that one. There was multiple Brexit rallies. I mean, there's a Brexit rally wherever you went, basically, all week long, which a little frustrating. And then we also had a fire at Victoria Station, which was one of the tube stations, and that was crazy because we were right there, ready to hop on our tour, and find out that the train is no longer allowed to stop because of a fire alarm. We then have to pass our station and then run through the streets of London to go to the tour bus, and we have no idea where we're at. Remember, my phone is acting wonky because Google Maps is not the best in Paris or London outside the U.S. So you'd be walking and all of a sudden you'd disappear and you'd reappear somewhere else on the map. So it's kind of intense. Let's just say 20 minutes for our family, but it was good. It was a growing experience, as Kathleen said multiple times to the kids. We had a hard time with either the tube being late, not knowing where we're at, not knowing how to read a sign, or just being plain old confused looking at a menu. It was just kind of a good experience for us. So smoking I talked about. Actually, there was a couple other things. In London, right? So when you're in a bar in London or a pub, most of the places do not have waitresses, right, or waiters. So you have to go up to the bar and you order your food. The bartender delivers. Sometimes there's service included, the tip is included, sometimes it's not. Same thing in France. But this one bar, the Phoenix, that we went to 3 times, because the kids liked it a lot. It was kind of cool. It was kind of laid back. Basically, you would go up to the bar and you would order. And there was only one bartender there and probably one cook in the back, and the bar probably had 20-25 people in it, and she was serving everybody dinner and the beer. Our food came out perfect. It was fine. When the food comes out, the bartender brings the food to your table, and that's basically all they do. And then you leave, and you leave the food on the table. They take care of it. I try to tip as much as possible if I could, even though I know sometimes the tip, even if the tip was included, I would tip a little bit more. But sometimes there was just no tip included. That's just the way it works there. So anyway, that's one of the biggest things we noticed. Now in France, it was different. For the most part, they had bartenders. They had waitresses or waiters. And in France, one of the odd, the other thing we thought about was language, like language barrier, right? So I speak no French. I was saying danke, I was messing up what I was saying, and I was saying excusez-moi, or, excusez, which is more Italian, right? Um, but, so we were struggling with that a little bit, but Kathleen and Chris did a really great job of helping out, reading what they could figure out in French. And some of the menus were in French, and they even had English underneath it, which was awesome. One of the frustrating things was when we went to go order McDonald's the first night, Christopher and I were just like, what the heck's going on here, right? We don't know what, we were jet lagged, we were hungry, it was later at night, and we went to go get something at a McDonald's. We went to go purchase it. Funny thing is that we didn't know what we were doing, even though he kind of understood what he was doing, right? So we had to go up and talk to the woman, and she spoke perfect English, right? She at least spoke 2 languages, right? So that's in a McDonald's. So when we go to buy tickets at Versailles for the train to Versailles, we were given directions on how to get to the train station. Perfect, it worked fine. We get in the train station, it's a hot mess. There's nobody there to help you. There's no customer service. The first 4, 5, or 6 machines we look at, there's no way to translate it back to English. You hear something in the background. It's Lafayette chewing his bone here, having a good time being home again. We finally find a computer, a kiosk that works and has English. And thanks to Jake, because Jake said, I think this one might work. And I thought he was crazy, but it did work. So we were actually able to use that kiosk that spoke English. And nobody apparently in the whole train station could speak any English. Now, I doubt that highly, especially if somebody in McDonald's can speak English. Why wouldn't somebody who works in a train station speak English? A little frustrating, but I think it was kind of what you hear about French people, right? They don't want to speak English unless they have to. They're annoyed about speaking English, but oh well. I guess that's why we beat them in soccer. Anyway, so they were some of the highlights of the trip. There was a lot of other things that we saw, and just I think the big thing was when you have a vacation plan like this and you think, you've been waiting for a few years to do it, you've been wanting to do it for a while, and you actually go do it, sometimes the hype is not matched with the reality, but this really was, and I think we all enjoyed it. I think that the kids grow a lot, which is great. I think Christopher really gets it. Megan kind of gets it, and Jake, I don't think he quite understands what he just did and how cool it's going to be years from now, but I know he will realize that years from now, about how awesome it was. But they all did a great job taking care of themselves, and Megan did a great job of stepping up and directing us through metro stations, making sure nobody pickpocketed us. Meg, she was on guard, so she did a great job of that. And Christopher was kind of, reading the different things in French and trying to figure out what we were doing, where we were doing it. It was great. Christopher actually tried a few alcoholic beverages, which was nice on this trip. So it was kind of a fun thing for me to do, hang out with him at a cafe and a pub, which was kind of neat. And that's about it. We had a good time, and I will talk to everybody later.